So hello, we are live again. I'm doing a test to see whether I can figure out why the live stream yesterday didn't show the chat. Because apparently we had 84 chat messages, but I couldn't find them at all. And then stupidly this morning, I accidentally deleted the live stream. So that one no longer exists. Sorry, I'm just making tea. I'm posh. And I'm testing also how good live streams are in the early morning. You see if anybody's actually awake. Of course, you know, if you're in England, you may be awake. Because I've never really done an early morning live stream before. And of course, my sleeping pattern is all over the place. It goes through cycles. So, you know, next week I might be not asleep at this time of day. But, yeah, so the art form of storytelling. What is storytelling? As I put some sugar in my tea. Well, storytelling is a very old thing, isn't it? Let's face it. We've been telling stories to one another since we lived in caves. Since we learnt the ability to talk. So storytelling goes back tens of thousands of years. I mean, I'm not quite certain how long we've been talking for. I'll have to think about that. It's one of those questions in life I've never really thought about. Have we been talking for 100,000 years? Have we been talking for 500, a million? Of course, if I had another phone, I could ask AI and it will probably give me the correct answer, even though it does get things wrong. And then you have to correct AI, and then it says, "Oh, I'm awfully sorry, I got that wrong, didn't I? You bloody did, AI." So, and then I think trying some live streams throughout different parts of the day to see what sort of audience levels we got. I mean, in theory, you know, if we've got really 10,000 people subscribed, we should, in theory, have some people around, but also depending whether this is being made public. Because if you do a live stream and you keep it unlisted, then nobody's going to see your live stream and nobody's going to watch it. Oh, that is nice tea. I've got a bit of honey in it as well. Yes, so storytelling is such an old and wonderful thing. We'll just wait and see if anybody joins. Hello, hello world, anybody there? Sorry, I can't do a silly voice now and again. Yes, I was really gutted this morning when I put a video out I made just from some of the things I made with Sora. I've been experimenting, and you know, normally you get, I think it's 3 to 6 photographs you can generate a day, but I've subscribed very recently on the 1st of June to ChatGPT, just at a basic £20 a month. I'll do it for a month if I think it's, well, I can't quite speak then. If I think it's rewarding, I will probably keep subscribing if I can afford it. It's certainly got benefits from the way I see it. Oh, I've got somebody watching. Hello. So we're talking about storytelling, and I'm drinking tea at the same time, and I'm just testing. I want to see in the live stream if you could leave a comment, because yesterday when I did a live stream, none of the comments showed up, and I watched. Oh, somebody's gone now. I watched the live stream afterwards, and I couldn't still see the comments. I don't know why that is. And perhaps nearly 10 o'clock in the morning is probably a little bit early for some people. But you know, I'm at home all the time, so I got the ability to. I just noticed I got Alexa over here. Naughty Alexa, you shouldn't be on the book. I just noticed that perhaps we'll try doing live streams at different times of the day. No doubt the best time of the day to do a live stream is probably in the evening, because certainly in the UK, which are a majority of our audience. I think about 60% of people watch the channel are from the UK. And then we probably have between 20 and 30% from Canada and America. America's second, Canada's third. And then the rest of the world make up the other 10%. But I could be wrong on that. And of course, live streaming is a very important aspect of, YouTube, and slap my wrist because I've been very bad and naughty. I've not been doing a lot of live streams over the years, and I really should be making an effort to do live streams. So I was thinking last night when I was attempting to go to sleep that perhaps instead of trying to plan a live stream once or twice a week, perhaps I should just commit and do one every day. Maybe around noontime in the afternoon and evenings, to see whether that would work. So please do say hello. Hello, I know somebody watching. Hello, how are you? Are you having a good morning so far? If you're wondering what you're watching, I am a Norse modern pagan, and this is a history channel. But we also like to have fun, and we also like to tell stories and folk tales, and storytelling is an important aspect of the channel. Even though those videos don't get the best views in the world, and I keep getting emails from people saying, "Oh, well, if you pay us money, we'll help you to increase your SEO and get more views on your channel." I had one yesterday from some guy who highlighted the various things on the channel. Well, I know how to do SEO. I know how to get a relatively high score. It's just A, that sometimes I don't have the time. B, sometimes I'm a bit lazy. And C, I'm a bit very forgetful. And probably D, I've got too many things to do and work on the channel. So yes, trying to go back to the subject of storytelling, such an ancient and wonderful thing. I love telling stories. Whether it's down the pub, to random strangers or my friends. And certainly when I used to go out regularly and meet a guy called Thomas Dale, who used to be a fan of the channel, but he seemed to have disappeared in life. Not literally like magic. He's not a magician. It's not like, a flash of light and smoke and disappeared. No, not in that sense. He just disappeared in the sense of I don't hear from him now, even though I keep messaging Thomas to try to get him to talk to me. And I know what it's about because he's not talked to me for a while, and he probably feels somewhat embarrassed about communicating because of the fact that he's not talked to me for so long. So I used to go to the pub and meet him, and I'll tell him a few stories and folk tales. Because let's face it, as long as we've had the ability to sit down with a drink, sit down around a fire or a hearth, we've been telling each of us stories. So there you are. You may be an Anglo-Saxon. You may be a Norse warrior, a Viking is your way of life, and perhaps you're a travelling blacksmith, or you may be a trader. You may be a hired professional soldier, going from one lord or one earl or jarl to another. So you sit around in the long hall. Sometimes you might be sitting around outside, around a fire pit. And you'll be telling each other stories, and you learn stories and you pick them up because there you are, as a medieval warrior, you're sitting by a fireside, and don't forget the live stream. Oh, you gone again. Oh, goodbye. Hello, goodbye. People are probably wondering, what's all this about? So storytelling is such an old thing, but it's also about the narration of storytelling because that's an important aspect. To narrate it. And I really used to enjoy the videos where I filmed with Egil Thorson. I nearly called him Egil Skallagrimsson then. When we were both sitting around telling stories, I did the narration because Egil was a little bit more funnier with the voices than me. And I really enjoyed those videos. In fact, I may put out a long format video today of one of the folk tales I've re-edited. Because back in the day when I was editing videos, I was a little bit lazy, and because I didn't have a very good computer or PC, when I was trying to play back these videos in the video editor of my choice, which is DaVinci Resolve, it just wouldn't play back normally. So it was very difficult in the first original few years to actually edit videos. So it was a matter of cutting the front of the video and the back of the video, and then putting a outro video at the end, and that was fundamentally how I used to edit videos at the very beginning. And some days I still do that, but and then some days I will sit down in front of my computer and I will actually go through the old video, and I will remove any ums and ahs, breaths and so forth. But I try not to do it too much because I don't want it to be too jumpy. But quite amazing these days, there's various apps and tools which you can download your video to and do an auto cut. And now the auto cut will do all that for you. So those videos with Eggle and myself, and Eggle was putting on the little silly voices whilst I was narrating the story, I found to be fascinating, but also very difficult from my point of view, because I'm trying to do a serious story and keep the story going, but inside of me I'm dying of laughter, and I'm trying not to show on camera that I am finding Eggle to be very funny and hilarious, and he was truly a very funny man, especially when he got him drunk. Because when he got him drunk and you took him down the pub, this is a very rare thing, because he wasn't a big drinker. And certainly he told me about times when he used to go and see a friend of his called Emma, who passed away before Eggle. A few occasions he got that drunk on brandy, he kind of slept in a bath, of all places. So yeah. So I think this little button down here is to go to the comments. But when I did a live stream yesterday, which no longer exists because stupidly I deleted it this morning because I saw a grey box thinking, well, that's not my video. It must have ended by now. And you can't undelete a YouTube video. So be careful when you delete videos. Make sure you don't delete the wrong one. So narration is very important in the story. But you also need to add that element of humour and that element of education, but without having the education aspect of the story being overwhelming, because nobody wants to listen to a story and have 30 facts told to them in one go. So you try to do it very cleverly. And then of course having a plot to a story is very important. I mean, it helps if you understand and learn the story beforehand, because if you're telling a story and you don't quite know the story, as a Thor's hammer on for the day, and we go double Thor's hammer today, because you never know. And I've also got this one as well. It's not a Thor's hammer, but it's a really heavy piece of silver. I mean, it's about 16 ounces of silver, that is. I mean, what silver? £30 an ounce. So, there's probably £500 worth of silver on that. It's upside down, it should be this way, and it's got a dragon motif. Originally, it had a Thor's hammer on it. So perhaps one day I'll take it off and put a silver Thor's hammer instead. But it does weigh a lot, and it does make your neck ache. Yeah, so having that plot to a story is very important. And perhaps in a little bit I'll tell a folk tale. This is more of a live stream test, just to test I want to see what the quality like is, having the front camera working, and then perhaps try one without the back camera. And I've been trying very hard to get my old tablet to charge up, which we used to use on the channel, but for some reason it won't charge up. So I think I'm going to have to take it apart and unplug the battery and put the battery back in and make sure the connectors aren't loose, which I don't really want to do. And of course I don't have a second phone where I could look at my phone and read any of the messages from looking at the live stream, which is a bit frustrating. I had another phone, but I gave it to my on and off girlfriend Abby, and they even paid £6 a month so she had another phone, and she never bloody used it. And now of course I don't have that phone, I could do what to do with it. But relationships are tough. But that's the way it goes, isn't it? But we'll put this other Thor's hammer. This is my favourite one. A nice proper silver chain. And you see a lot of people wear these, but they're not as good as this. This is a really authentic one. It's like it is authentic. I'm not sure if it's a copy of a find, but it's inspired by finds. And I must say, it was a wonderful item. And originally, that dragon was on it. This dragon little pendant used to be on this, and I took it off and put it onto this, and put a Thor's hammer on this. And I had to make a couple of links. These used to be silver plated links, but over the time the silver plating's come off, and now you can just see the copper. But of course, I think it's a very important aspect of being a Norse pagan, of waking up and putting your Thor's hammers on, because it does give you protection and strength, and makes you respect the god Thor, or Thunar, to the Anglo-Saxons. Right, I need more tea because I'm British, because I'm English, and English people drink a lot of tea. I've got a silver plate teapot because I'm posh. This was a gift from Ellie, the lady from Alistry, who I know, who is a wonderful lady, and I'm very thankful that she gave me this, and I've definitely been using it quite a bit, because drinking from anything made from silver is very good for your health, because silver has a lot of properties in it which are very good for you. And now I got to go to the sugar. I'm trying to cut down on my sugar. We've got too much of an addiction in society when it comes to sugar. Normally I put a bit of honey in. I'm trying to replace sugar with honey, but it does make me think about honey, and whether cheap honey is actually good for you. And you know, you can be dreadful. You think to yourself, well, I'm buying relatively cheap honey, what, 85 pence a jar from Aldi or Lidl, but it'll be horrified. I would be, if it's got sugar in it. Although I do have a little bit of honey that my dad made, so I've got to bottle some more up, and then I'll be doing, I'll be having honey which is over 40 years old. So how cool is that? Because that honey never goes off. I mean, you could, and they've found jars of honey, from way back in time, 1,000 years or 2,000 years old, and they've actually, tested and ate the honey. And it reminds me of some of the bog cheese. Bog cheese is basically a big board of cheese that gets placed in a bog to preserve it. So, they're finding cheese from the, Iron Age and the Bronze Age, and some people have actually had a go to eat it. Yeah, you may not want to eat the edge of the cheese, but the inside of the cheese, in theory, should be okay. But it's an experiment to eat it. It's not exactly going to have it on the cheese sandwich. I wouldn't like to think about doing that. Yeah, so perhaps it's a little bit early in the morning to do a live stream. Pin to live chat. I don't know what that does. Oh, let's tag a product. No, that's tagging a product. Our products have come online. So this is why I couldn't see the chat yesterday, because yeah, no. So perhaps I had the chat hidden. Live chat. So what I will do later on today, this evening, I'm going to come on back online, and I know there's going to be more people around. Perhaps I will make a community post and announce it in the next couple of hours that I'm going to do a live stream tonight. Because I feel very bad and guilty over the fact that I deleted last night's live stream. Oh, I'm absolutely gutted over that, especially when I'm trying to build up watch time. But I did look at some of the old live streams where I live streamed for 4 or 5 hours, and some of them had 30 to 50 hours of watch time. So perhaps that's a way I could increase my watch time when it came to the 4,000 hours I need. Although, because I got taken off the YouTube partner program when I made all those daft videos last year, because some of it was reused content, even though, I put a bit of a narration over it. And So I have to reapply, and hopefully that's not going to affect the channel too much. I mean, yeah, and then one of the videos I posted was from somebody else. I think it was from YouTube, and he gave me a community strike. And I did ask him nicely, could you take it off? I'll give you a shout out. And considering that I had more subscribers than him, and the guy was a right tool, he runs a gaming channel. Well, I can't remember the name he goes by, but he was one of the like special people. I had a community strike, the first one ever on the channel. So do be careful when using other people's content, and search for Creative Commons content, because in theory that should be safe to use. Although I've downloaded a few Viking movies just to take the fighting scenes, because I quite fancy just watching them and doing a narration talking about what I think about some of the fighting scenes. And I watched a really good film the other day, a really good fighting film called Beowulf and Grendel. It's not the Beowulf one, it's the Beowulf and Grendel. And I must say, I thought that was really good. I didn't watch all of it because I got distracted by something else. But I thought to myself, well, actually, this is a really good film, because the clothing they was wearing was really good. The background and the setting was really good as well. And Beowulf looked great. And then he got into a bit of a fight when he landed on a beach after he must have, the longship must have capsized or something. And he ended up being washed up. And this old fisherman kind of helped him, made him some food. And then some people came and he got into a fight. And I thought the fight scene was really good as well. And then I definitely want to get back into doing some reviews of trailers on the channel, and perhaps have the trailer in the top of the corner. I know how to do that now. Back when in the day when me and Eggle were doing trailer reviews, we used to watch the trailer beforehand and talk about it, because I didn't really have the ability or a fast enough PC to actually put the trailer on the video and for us to watch it. So I think that will be quite cool, and have the trailer. And I think just having the trailer playing and not talking over it won't be fair use. So, yeah, I've got to think about that. Oh, that tea is lovely. Oh, it makes you think what the Vikings and Norse and would think about tea. Because, of course, you had nettle tea and stuff like that, and various things you can make into a hot drink. I mean, they weren't daft. They knew all about the plants and the herbs and the hedgerows and hedge roads and in the forest. So they knew about all these sort of things, and they knew about dandelion roots. You dry them, wash and dry them, slice them up, and they make really nice cup of tea. And acorn, of course, is a bit like drinking coffee. It's quite amazing. In World War II, they used to have acorn coffee as a regular thing, because we couldn't really get the coffee or the tea in. Because I've not really combed my hair yet. There's the perils of being not long waking up. I woke up at 6 o'clock, but I got a slight headache come on. So I'm going to take some more painkillers. I do take ibuprofen now and again, and paracetamol when I got a headache, because I really don't like having a headache. And perhaps I think often I just don't drink enough water. And of course we take water for granted these days, but back in those medieval times, it wasn't so readily available. You had to go and get it from a stream in a wooden bucket, carry it back with you unless you got a roll and a water source nearby, and then board it up, and probably somehow also filter it. So I got a sheath, but where's my sword? It's a bit like a song that I've got my sword sheath, but I don't have my sword. Oh, where is my sword? But I've got my sword sheath. Somebody's probably gone and nicked it. Back in the day, of course, you would always look after your weapons and have a chest to put them in, because they was very expensive. You wouldn't leave them lying about. Yeah, so another thing I want to experiment on the vertical videos is perhaps trying a few videos using a green screen, where I could talk about archaeological objects. I think that would be quite fascinating. Yeah, so it's definitely too early in the morning to do a live stream. There's not enough people online, and probably because I've not advertised it, and also because, you know, it's too early in the morning. Most people in America will be in bed. Well, they are lucky. I mean, I got about 5 hours sleep last night, which is not bad for me. I could do getting 6 or 7 hours, because then I feel tired all day, and if I feel tired, then I'm going to be less likely to film videos. But after this video, I'm going to do a little bit of filming, because I want to do another of the videos what I've got to write the keywords for, and do a little bit of research on the mental health aspect of what I'm trying to cover on the channel, because I just think that's being responsible to talk about mental health and also give a voice to people, because, you know, if you've got so many subscribers like I have, then you have responsibility to try to help people, I think, you know. Oh, hello, somebody watching. Hello. Like the video and leave a comment. This is more of a random talk, but I am talking about storytelling at the same time, but also talking about how British people love tea, because tea is such an important thing. And of course, back in the medieval times, we didn't have tea or coffee. Yeah, you can go and get acorns and dry them, and dig up dandelion roots and dry them and have them as a hot drink. And of course, we knew about the herbs and the various other things we could put into a hot drink and mix them up with a few others, which is quite fascinating. But yes, please do leave a like. I'm testing the comment section, so if anybody could leave a comment, I just want to do a short live stream and then see whether the comments actually show up, because the one I did last night, which I stupidly deleted, that's bad myself, I couldn't see the comments, and apparently there was loads of them, and I did kept looking whilst doing the live stream for the comments, but nothing showed up. And then you should be able to comment. Oh, we've got 2 people watching. Oh, brilliant. It's 10 o'clock. Perhaps. Oh, no, they're gone now. Oh, bye. Hello. Goodbye. Yeah, perhaps I have to go offline again for a minute and come back online. What does this button do? Retouch. Hide live video. Mute. Flip. Create a highlight. What's creating a highlight then? No idea what that is. And you got, this is, no, that's not what I want to do. No, there we go. Oh, so you can take the camera off for a minute if you've got to do something like blow your nose. Swear at the camera. Oh, bloody hell, nobody watching. You know, perhaps go to your phone and make a phone call. You can retouch it. You can mute. Well, I suppose if you've got to make a phone call, you may want to mute it. Although I did watch a video the other day where I was trying to figure out how to do something, and then halfway through the video, the guy took a phone call and then silenced the video, and I was on the phone for a minute, and I thought to myself, well, how bloody rude is that? If you're trying to learn how to do something and you're watching a how-to video, and then the guy, you know, in a 5-minute video spends 1 minute on the video on his bloody phone. I mean, talk about bloody laziness. It's all right. Bloody is one of those acceptable swear words, I think, which is quite fine. So I do have a random notebook full of ideas. I'm going to make a video about some of the most stupid questions I've been asked as a reenactor, as somebody that recreates history. Perhaps we'll go through them now, and you can let me know in the comments what you think. So the first one refers to when I was an American Civil War reenactor. Somebody asked me, do you use real bullets? Well, no, because if we use real bullets, we're going to kill each other. Literally, I've been asked that a few times. Oh, you know, is that a real musket? Oh, yes. Do you use real bullets or fake bullets? Well, what's a fake bullet? Literally, I mean, some people, well, fair enough, it was, you know, probably not the brightest spark in the world, but the fact that they've asked on on camp, and they come up to you, a member of the public, like, do you use real bullets in your guns? Yeah, well, can you imagine it? There you are, back in the 90s, there'd be 1,000 people on the battlefield, 20 regiments, and we use real bullets, most of us are going to die, oh, look, all right, Sergeant, you got your head blown off, oh, look, you got no arm, Corporal. So, yeah, so that's one of the, I think that's probably my top number one. And then the second one was, why don't you fight with sharp weapons? I was expecting real bloodshed. Was another question I was asked by a member of the public, was being a Norse warrior reenacting at a battle. And I explained to him, well, if we use sharp weapons, sir, we can end up chopping all our heads and arms off. It'd be a bit like that scene out of Monty Python with the Black Knight, when, he's got no arms and legs, but he still wants to fight. Yeah, brave man. And then on camp once I was asked, was my dad a Viking in real life? And they said, what do you mean by real life? So, what did he live 1,000 years ago? And was he a Viking? I said, well, no, but that's not that old. So this is going to be a long format video. Well, perhaps I'll cover it in a 3-minute shorts video. And then I had somebody come up at a multi-reenactment event and ask me, was World War II a reenactment? Because he was convinced that World War II wasn't real and it was just a reenactment. So that's another ridiculous question I've been asked. And then I had a friend who's still a friend on Facebook, but I don't really know him in real life anymore, called Stuart, who's a really nice guy, and he portrays a medical officer in the American Civil War Society. And somebody asked him about whether his dad was in the Civil War. And Stuart's probably about 5-10 years older than me, and his dad's passed away. He was a really nice guy. I can't remember his name of his dad, but his dad was a lovely, lovely man, and he always had time for me. And he always spoke to me on camp, and I sit down with him, and he'll tell me stories. So somebody once asked him, was you, I'm just going through stupid questions I've been asked as a reenactor. So somebody asked Stuart whether his dad was actually in the American Civil War. And Stuart explained that, well, no, because my dad was born just before World War II, and therefore he's not old enough. Yeah, so... and then number 6 was, I thought Vikings fought in World War I and World War II. So some guy came up to me at a medieval event and thought that the Vikings, the Norse warriors, were actually in World War II in longships. No, that never happened. We did not fight in World War II. I mean, and he was serious. It's not like coming up and saying, I heard Vikings were in World War II as a joke. It wasn't. It was a very serious question. I'd spend 10 minutes with him explaining it, and he wouldn't believe me. I said, oh, no, I read it in a book that, in World War II, the Norwegian warriors all got the longships out and went fighting the Germans in longships. No, that did not happen. So somebody else asked me, I think online, on Facebook, do you actually live in the past full time? Well, no, because at the moment I'm in modern clothes and I live in a modern house. So I don't live as a Viking full time. So yeah, another stupid question. Then on a few occasions we've had people come up to us doing medieval reenacting. They say, well, can I join up and fight today? And can I have a sword and a shield, please? And we had to explain to them, well, no, you've got to join the society and you've got to start doing your training and you got to, learn how to use a spear first. So you can't just get some kit and borrow it off somebody and come and join the fight. That's not how it works. Which is another stupid question I've been asked as a reenactor. And if you don't know what reenacting is, it's when you recreate the past. And I've had another stupid question from somebody saying, as a Viking, can you actually time travel to the Dark Ages? Well, no. Time travel doesn't exist, most probably. And even though very interesting recently in one of the Washington White House announcements today, they talked about the fact that they've got the technology to manipulate time and space. and also transport people through some kind of device. So what was all that about? I mean, and how has that escaped the multimedia and the mainstream media when they're not talking about it? Because if that's fundamentally true, and I don't see why somebody at the White House is making one of these announcements and talking about things, why it would not be true. Because you know, can you imagine it? You know, can you imagine like Keir Starmer, having a press conference and at the end of it saying, "Oh, by the way, we've got time travel and the ability to transport you to America in 3 seconds, and no, you're not getting your winter fuel allowance back," and people just like missing it. Well, like, people are like, oh, different debate. And then somebody asked me once on camp a few years back, did Vikings have mobile phones? No. Although it's always interesting when you see some of these, images from the past and artwork or old pictures from like 1920, where people say, "Oh, this guy's using a mobile phone in his hand." But if we have the ability to time travel and to go back in time, you're most probably not going to be taking your mobile phone with you, because of the fact that when you're using it and you're not going to have a signal, if you get a photograph taken with you using a phone, it's kind of, gives it away. Although I did see something very interesting the other day of a find of a wooden tablet, which I think he either got a piece of slate on it or it's been painted black so you could write on it. And it looks very much like a tablet, like a modern tablet. I thought that was quite interesting from the medieval age. And perhaps if I get some wood, I could probably think about recreating a copy of it. Another stupid question I've been asked, why do you have real weapons instead of plastic ones? Well, we're reenactors and we do it historically, and we're not members of LARP, live action role replay. So, that's another odd question. And then somebody once on camp asked me, is my Viking kit original? Is it 1,000 years old, your kit? No, I made my trousers 2 years ago. So another stupid question I've been asked as a Viking. And then number 13, there's 13 of them on here. That's the fourth video. Got a comment here from Larry Gooseman. Oh, Bragi, Skull. Oh, Skull. I'm just doing a bit of an early morning live stream test. Oh, yes, please do ask the question and I'll answer it. Yeah, then at Westow, somebody asked me once if the buildings and the Anglo-Saxon longhouses or buildings, are they original? Well, no, they're reproduction, but they are based and placed on the same area. So let me see if I can see your comment. Because when I did a live stream last night, apparently we had 84 comments, but for some reason I couldn't see all your comments. So I don't know why that is. But I figured out this button so I can go back and check for the live stream. So please do ask me a question, Larry, and I'm more than happy to answer it. And in a minute, I'm going to open my doors because it's getting a bit warm in here because of my LED light system. I'm roasting. It's a good way to lose weight. Go on live stream with a very hot LED lamp next to you. I'll probably wake up in the morning on this side of my face will be all red. Have I got any more tea in my teapot? Let's have a look. And then stupidly, I did a live stream last night, and then I managed to actually delete the live stream this morning by mistake because I thought it was another video rendering. So, Larry, you've asked the question, what is my birth name? I was wondering, was your birth name Bragi? No, it wasn't actually, no. So in real life, in the modern world, my Christian name is Andrew, but I go by the name Andy. And when I started reenacting the Viking era in 1999, it's quite a tradition in that era of reenacting to choose a Norse or Anglo-Saxon name, depending on the group you join. So I've always been into poetry and writing poetry. I'm a really good lyricist. And, I could write a song so easily. And rhyming is something I'm so natural to. So I chose the name Bragi because of the Norse god of poetry, which is Bragi, but also it is one of the names which the Allfather has also been known to use. So, but I have thought about, perhaps even changing my name to Bragi by Deepole and becoming actually Bragi Magnusson, because in theory he's a character, isn't he? But he's also a representation of myself. But Andy, my real name, doesn't sound very Viking, does it? And then let's talk about my surname. So, of course, you need to have a surname being a Viking, or you could have a nickname. I mean, I could be, Bragi the Skald. I could have been Bragi the Tall, Bragi the Fearless. So, nicknames are very common. But in the medieval times, you take your father's name as the beginning of your surname, and then you put son at the end. And it's the same with daughters. Instead of having son, you have daughter. So if you see somebody and they got Dottir at the end, that's Scandinavian, and it's slightly different from Swedish to Danish to Norwegian and Icelandic. But Dottir is basically the word for daughter. In Anglo-Saxon English, it's Dottir. It's very similar to Dottir. So one of the characters we've created, which is fundamentally what my girlfriend was going to be called when she ever appears on the channel, as she ever starts talking to me properly, her name was going to be Thora Egglesdottir, out of respect from Eggle, and pretending to be Eggle's fundamentally daughter in a way. So the reason why I chose Magnusson was because I was sitting down with the mighty Tyrkir Thorkelfsson, and we were talking about, what names I could choose. Back in the day, in the group, there used to be a guy who had the surname Magnusson. And back in the 90s, Magnus Magnusson was a famous TV character. So he had a catchphrase, which I started, so I'll finish. And so I had that as my catchphrase on camp when I was in the battle. And basically, kind of Tyrkir chose the name Magnusson, the more Icelandic way. So Larry says, is your girlfriend also interested in Norse history? Well, to a little degree, yes. But because we're having problems in our relationship with the fact that she's not very well, and therefore, we kind of got a little bit distant from each other, and I'm like in this no man's land of thinking, well, do I have a girlfriend at the moment? Do I want to start thinking about moving on? Do I wait, or do I try to communicate, even though she's not a very good communicator, which is really daft because she's so intelligent, but when it comes to relationships, she's just not so intelligent. And she would really hate me talking about the whole situation on camera because she likes to be private, but I also think that's a way of controlling me as well. So I'm trying to open up about it a little bit more. Originally, when we got together, she was going to start joining the channel, but because her health got in the way, and she has an undiagnosed illness and basically isn't very well at the moment, she hasn't appeared on the channel, apart from some of the videos she made at the very beginning where we did a face reveal and I showed a few photographs of her, which she didn't like in the end, and I had to take them down. I think there's one or two of them still there. So I'm kind of in that situation where I'm thinking, well, do I start thinking about moving on? Do I wait? And, and how long do you wait in the relationship before you're saying to yourself, well, I'm wasting my time. Life's too short and too precious to wait for somebody that's not talking to you. And in the last 2 weeks, we've talked once, and then she did phone me up last week and sing a song to me from The Greatest Showman. I must say, she's got a very good voice. So I'm just giving her the silent treatment at the moment. I mean, the way she put it, I'm concentrating on my life and she's concentrating on getting better in her life, which is understandable. But it's very frustrating when you're in a relationship and you want to move forward. But at the same time, there's a part of me that doesn't want to give up because, finding and meeting people in the modern world to date and go out with is very difficult. But I'm looking. I'm looking to see what's around and what options. If I can find myself a really good, nice, good-looking, intelligent shield maiden, I'd have a real conflict on my hand of what to do. Yeah, don't forget to like the live stream as well. And I'm gonna try to do regular live streams from now on. I think trying to commit to doing like 2 live streams a week isn't going to work for me. Not with my stupid brain I've got. Well, it's not stupid, it's intelligent, but it's just the way my brain works. So I'm just thinking about doing a live stream every day, whether it's for half an hour or whether it's for 4 or 5 hours. And Larry says, I feel you, Bragi. I wish I had the answers. Curious, how old are you? Well, I'm actually 48 years old. I'm nearly 50. I'll be 49 this year. I was born in the hot summer in the UK of 1976. But I don't feel my age, and hopefully I don't look like, because I see people that are my age, 50 or in the early 40s, and they look so old. And I've always been a firm believer in longevity and looking after yourself, because I think that's so important that we try to have that longevity and you look after yourself, feed yourself well, take vitamins, and also try to live that long life if you can. But yeah, so it's scary on one side being nearly 50 and not settling down and not getting married and not having children, which I still want in my life. But I'm a bit like that as well, because do I want to be having children that are 20 years old when I'm 70? It's a bit cool to a certain degree, but at the same point, on the same hand, you think about all your past generations that have gone through the Black Death and gone through the medieval age. It's you want to try to carry on your legacy and your DNA. And then Larry says, thanks for the reminder. I forgot to like the stream. Well, thank you very much. It's just very important to like the videos, and I always appreciate your comments, and I'm trying to rely on actually comment back on a more regular basis, which I've been doing so recently. And then I'm going through the old comments and I'm searching for comments that I've not replied to, and some of them 4 or 5 months old. I've even gone back 3 or 4 years and found comments I've missed. So Larry says, how long ago did you start to get into the Viking history and get your first axe and sword? Oh, so it would have been over 30 years ago. Because as I came into my teenage years, I've kind of wanted to search and look for, because I've been brought up a Christian, but I didn't really feel like Christianity was giving me the answers to life. So I experimented. I became a white witch. I became a druid, and I tried different faiths around that. But all the time, I was always fascinated and interested in Norse and Viking culture, and to a certain degree, the Anglo-Saxons. Even though back in those days, the Anglo-Saxons probably didn't get the looking like compared to Viking culture, because there's probably 10 times the books when it comes to Vikings and the Norse than there is to Saxons. Even though that's probably changed today, because Anglo-Saxons are very popular. So when I was in my mid-teens, I started working as an engineer from my father's business, and I wanted to make myself a Viking helmet for some odd reason, because I had a book and I saw this lovely Viking helmet. It's downstairs. I can't show it at the moment. So when I was about 16, with a help from a guy called Dave, and it was a sheet metal worker, I made a Viking helmet, which I still have. And so that'll be the first bit of kit I ever got Viking-wise, was that helmet. And so that'll be 32 years old. Then a friend of mine gave me a medieval sword, but it's one of these show ones you put on the wall. I had that for many years, a guy called Sam. And then I think I was at a car boot and I saw a Viking sword. I sold it many years ago, which I never did it. Because, you have to regret in life selling things you wish you kept. So then me and Sam used to knock about his garden, no training at all. We'd just fight each other with swords and have a laugh, a guy called, I can't remember what Sam's last name was. It was in my engineering course. And he was, I did get him at one point involved. in Viking reenactment, but it was very difficult to communicate with because you can never get hold of him. And he had a few problems in life, you could say, but lovely guy. And he was always good to me at college, and I always appreciated his friendship. I hope he's all right in the world. I mean, he's been married and divorced a few times since then, and probably got more kids than he could shake a stick at. Sam Philpott, that was his name. So yeah, so in my teenage years, I used to knock about his house. This is when I lived in Mickletover, or Big Hill. If you translate it from Saxon, Mickle is big and over is hill. And then we used to, just have sword fights. And bearing in mind that, I had a sharp display sword and he had a sharp display sword. They was both sharp, and at that time I'd be 16 or maybe 17, maybe even 15. We used to just have sword fights, and then we'll just hang about the parks and go and get up to mischief as you do when you're that age. And then I got into the hobby of wargaming from about 12 years old. My mum took me to the Derby Wargame Society. And so, because I've always loved history all through my childhood, I'll have to share some of the photographs, but I got so many photographs of me standing next to World War II planes and tanks because my dad and my mum and dad used to take me to museums when we went away on holiday, and we did go on lots of holidays. So I was always into military things. I was all, from a very young age. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way I grew up. I had lots of toy soldiers, and my dad made me a wooden fort, and so I used to love that. So I got into wargaming, and I got into doing, I specialised in 15mm wargaming, ancients at first. But then I discovered the American War of Independence, and that fascinated me. And I still have all my figures. I've got a massive collection of 28mm figures, which I want to introduce to the channel at some point, wargaming, because it's another aspect of my life, which I spent so many years, sitting in my bedroom or, painting figures and making scenery. And I've lost that hobby in a way because I've got everything's packed away in boxes. And I want to set up a wargaming room and then bring it to the channel. And then, I can get out all my Anglo-Saxons and all my Vikings, and we could demonstrate some of the famous battles. So I got into wargaming. And I think I was about 17 years old. I went to a show in Sheffield. It was Triples. That was the name of the event, Triples Wargaming show. A big event. 100 traders and all these display tables. And I went with a guy called Sean Devereaux. And I got no idea whether Sean's alive or not. I think he's passed away. He was about 5 years older than me. So because I went to the Wargame Club in Derby, which used to be on the top floor of the Museum of Making, what it is now, is the Derby Industrial Silk Mill. I used to, I made some really good friends, like a guy called Malcolm, and there's all these guys who I forget half of them these days. I really will start thinking about trying to get back in some of these hobbies, really. But it's always time and money. So I went to the show with Sean. We got a lift with another guy. And at the show was a load of American Civil War reenactors. And me and Sean was really impressed. We had a look around the table. They got all these guns on show, and then all these guys dressed up in uniforms. And a big guy called Huggy Bear. I'm trying to think of his real name. He was the secretary of the society at the time, and it was really big. It was a massive society, the American Civil War Society. Because, you think to yourself, well, a lot of people think, well, what's England and Great Britain got to do with the American Civil War? Well, we played a massive part in it, because thousands of our men went over to fought in the Civil War, and the British government were supporting the Union and the Confederacy because they was playing a very much political game, thinking, well, if we back a bit of both, whoever wins, we're going to end up making more money out of them. So it was very much, politics was very much involved. And then, a lot of the, the cotton workers in Lancashire and Manchester and Liverpool, they went on strike to support the Union and not use Southern Confederate cotton. And of course, a lot of the ships were built in the UK and shipped over. So we did play a major part, as well as Europe. I mean, it was very much a European war because of the fact that there were so many European men fighting in it, because America was still very young at the time, and still is to a certain degree. So we got talking to this guy called Huggy Bear. I can't remember his name. It'll come back to me later when I'm not thinking about it. And there was a massive guy with a big bushy beard. And, he started talking to us. And, I've got a message on Tinder. You never know. At least I'm not being ghosted. Why do women, when you're on dating apps, you match and they ghost you? What's all that about? That's so blooming rude, isn't it? Anyway, so this big guy, he was a Union guy, and he was a member of the 19th Indiana Regiment, part of the Iron Brigade. Massive big black hat. I've got one. It's a bit like, it's a bit like one of these hats, but they're generally a bit taller. This is just a hat I got in America when I was reenacting. I like to wear a cowboy hat, but a hardy hat is what they're called. I've probably got a picture in one of my books on the American Civil War, which is one of the encyclopedias, because I'm going to at some point talk about and do a video talking about this bayonet, which is an original one, and this bayonet, which is one from the Crimean War. This is a little bit mucky, but I don't want to clean it up too much. And it's all got the original French inscription, which you may see down the side. And then, of course, to use these in the American Civil War, we had to cut these away and put a bit in the middle because the bit here, the diameter is too small for most muskets. But you imagine one of them at an end of a musket coming at you. And this one used to belong to my old friend and brother Mark Tremblay. So I've had this for 30 years. So I want to talk about that on camera. But he took us to the bar and he bought us a pint each. He said, "Oh, are you interested in coming along and having a go?" And me and Sean said, "Well, yeah, let's have a talk about it, So he took us to a bar. He bought us a couple of pints each, and he gave us the form. He said, "Right," he said, "we've got your numbers." And this is in the 90s when we didn't have mobile phones. We did everything through your telephone or writing a letter, young people will be shocked. What? You wrote letters to people? You actually had an old phone? And so, and he said, "Well, next weekend we've got a training camp in Bolton, because 2 weeks after that we got a big event. He said, why don't you come along and we'll give you a uniform and set you up and we'll teach you marching and how to fire a musket and do all that." So me and Sean were well up for it. So the next weekend, so this would have been, let's think, what year would it be? So it'd be 17, so it'll be 1993. 93 it was. So this will be in the summertime. So we got our train tickets. I had a big rucksack full of clothes and a sleeping blanket, and we got on the train to Bolton. We had to go to Manchester, and then Manchester to Bolton. Then we basically got to Bolton, and we couldn't find where we had to go. So we managed to find a taxi rank, and they took us to where we had to go. And where we was training was a very rough estate, because half the buildings and all the houses have all got massive grates on the windows. Me and Sean thinking, what we got ourselves into here? And then we met a guy called Chris Wood. He was a sergeant at the time. And we met a couple called Linda and Jeff, who it was their first weekend. And Linda and Jeff turned out to be the most craziest people I've ever met from Bolton. And I'm still friends with him after 30 years. And Jeff is the most cynical person you ever meet in your life. And Linda is just crazy. And some of the stories they used to tell me on camp, what they got up to in Bolton, were just hilarious. And so we found ourselves, this is leading up to how I became a Viking reenactor. I know it's a long story, but often in life, and I suppose it's quite relevant to the title because it is a story and a true story. So we did a weekend, and You know, we got there Friday night. We went down the local pub, and yeah, I did turn off and put it on airplane mode, but because I got Wi-Fi on, I'm still getting notifications. You know, took us down the pub. We had a few beers, and then we was in a scout hut, and we had to sleep on the floor. You know, we had quite a few beers that night, and everybody was telling us there was about 20, 30 people there. Then the next day we marched around the place. You know, we had a sergeant come and train us called Chris, and I think there was a corporal. Can't remember his name. So we did that. We did another day, Sunday. We went to a restaurant on, you know, in your bike, you know, in your Civil War kit, because they gave us some clothes. They said, right, here's a pair of trousers, here's a shirt, here's a you know, a Union sack coat, and here's your kepi. And then they had some deactivated muskets because we didn't have a shotgun license then. Then we did that. We stayed for the Sunday, got the train back, and then we had 2 more weeks to get ourselves organised for this event in Bolton. So me and Sean went, and that was the first time when I met a guy called Len Foxall. His name was Smokey on camp because he smoked an old pipe, and he was a drummer. And you know, I was in my tent having some food, and he put his head in my tent, and he said, "Hello," he said, "I've heard you're new." And considering there's like 1,000 of us on camp, you know, 500 Confederates and 500 Union, you know, reenactors, you know, he said, "We're going to the pub in a bit. Want to come along?" So I said yes, and Len Smokey was from the regiment, the 14th Brooklyn, New York State Militia, and from that very first event I went to, I always hung out with the 14th. Because those guys just had a reputation. It was legendary of partying and drinking hard and having a really good time. And, you know, being 17 years old, I was really up for that. And, of course, there was more women, you know, on camp you could chuck a hat at. So that was also great. And being a young 17-year-old with long blonde hair. But all through that time, I was always interested in the Viking life. I had quite a few books, and I kept buying books and reading books about Vikings. And I did try, at that very year, in '93, to join the Derby group. And I found them advertised online. And so I phoned up the team leader, the group leader, who was actually Turkey, and I left a couple of messages. And I think I spoke to him once on the phone, but he never got back to me. So I didn't do Viking reenacting from the early 90s because Graham being Graham or Turkey being Turkey was just very badly organised and probably stoned, to be fair, because he did smoke a lot of cannabis back in the day. So it's fair enough. Yeah, everybody had their own way of life. But so I did quite a few years of being an American Civil War reenactor. And then in 1999, there used to be a multi-reenactment event and I can't remember the name of the place. It was in Lincolnshire, and it was like there was like 5,000 people there. You know, from the Bronze Age up to World War II, and you know, you had tanks and you know, a lot of Napoleonic soldiers, cavalry, you name it, they was there. You know, it was brilliant. And I can't remember. Oh, it began with a K. Not Kirby Hall. That was it. It was called Kirby Hall. In fact, there is an old video somewhere from the 90s, which you'll see me on it. I'll have to think about trying to get that video and use it somehow. So I went to this event, and as always, before any battle takes place, and considering that, you know, throughout the day and the weekend, it was a bank holiday weekend, there was battles from early morning up to 5 o'clock because, you know, they had every period of history you could think of, you know, the English Civil War, you know, medieval guys dressed in armour, you know, the Boer War, World War One, World War Two, you know, you name it, they had people there reenacting. So when you're doing reenacting, there's a lot of standing around waiting for the battle to happen, and a lot of marching. So we was waiting to march over the back of the hill so we could start to come down and fight the Confederates. So we was in this place near the old hall, and there was all these Vikings there. Well, me being me and loving Vikings and Norse warriors, I kind of went up to a few of them and said, "Oh yeah, I love your kit. You know, can you tell me about it?" And I got talking to a guy called Gary, a short guy with long black hair. And he said, oh, where you're from, you sound a bit familiar. I said, oh, I'm from Derby. I said, oh, that's a small world. I said, we're all from Derby. This is a Derby group. So I got talking to those guys, and I said, well, I've always wanted to do a bit of Viking reenacting. So he said, well, give me your telephone number and your address, and we'll send you out some stuff next week. And in a couple of weeks, we've got a training session. Come along, have a go. So that's how I got into it. 2 weeks after that, and that would have been around about 1999. It was 6 years after I started reenacting. I went along, and at the time I lived in Mickleover. I didn't live where I live now in Alistory, and there was training in Alistory Woods. There's a bit of an open area and a car park. So I went along, and they gave me a spear and I put a helmet on my head, and they said it's really nice to actually get a new recruit that's done reenacting. We don't have to, give the ins and outs of that hobby. So that's when I first started joining and becoming a Viking. We had at the time a group leader called Lynn, who, of course, the famous Lynn who made Eggle's trousers. It became a bit of a joke between me and Eggle, oh, Lynn's made your trousers. I love those videos. It was very funny. And then Graham took over, Tier here. And then we had a guy called, wait a minute, John. We had a guy called John. I won't say his last name because he turned out to be a right nightmare and completely ruined the Derby group to the point where it collapsed. Because we did a really successful campaign of recruiting when the Lord of the Ring movies were on, because I got co-opted onto the committee, because a lot of groups have committees and some organised structure. So I think I became a master at arms to help the training officers, and I came up with the idea, well, why don't we go to the seminar where the Lord of the Ring movies are about to show in a few weeks and stand outside and give out leaflets. So I came up with this ingenious idea, and it really was ingenious, because there we were, we phoned up the seminar. We said, oh, you got Lord of the Rings premiere thing, the first one, the Fellowship of the Ring, so can we stand outside and do some recruiting? And they with their hands together and thought, oh, that'd be brilliant. And in fact, you'll see there's a picture on the community post where you'll see us, we're dressed a bit like Romans for one of the time, because we're trying to get a little bit of fantasy with the Lord of the Rings movies, and we got in the local paper quite a few times, and so we did this couple of nights of recruiting, and we recruited about 20 people. It was like incredible. It was too many people, to be fair, because we had the next training weekend. We've gone from 10 people to 30 people. And we recruited all these amazing people, including a guy called Dave Elliott, who's like one of the most toughest Vikings I've ever met. And if there's anybody I ever met in my life who's actually a proper Viking and proper Norse warrior, it's Dave. And no, it's not. Dave the cat isn't named after him, by the way. But that's a whole other story. So we had all these new people come along and join the group, but then John, who was setting himself up as a trader, just used all these new people to make money out of them. He was selling them clothing and axes and spears, and he then manipulated the whole situation and basically got me and Graham and Thorolf and a lot of the old people kicked out of the group, because we kind of realised that he wasn't quite right, and I took over becoming the treasurer. And when I did, I noticed all these errors in the accounts, which were wrong, like money missing. So that kind of brought about a big thing. And the whole history of the Derby Viking group is a whole saga on its own, and I don't know the whole story of it. I know what I know from 1999. So that kind of destroyed the group, and there you go. So yes, so Larry says, I'd love to see that video. Yeah, if I can get it and not have a copyright or anything like that, I'll try to share it and perhaps do a commentary to it, talking about this really good, amazing event. And then we have a comment here from my brother, Eirik, the modern day skald. So hello, Eirik. How are you today, brother? I hope you're having a good day. I did get your video yesterday of Dave the Cat, and I did watch it, and I thought it was very, very funny. And I was thinking about the origin story of Dave the cat, and I think we've got to have Dave when he gets transported back from the modern world back to the 9th century. I think we're going to have Dave like lost in the woods. You know, he's got the ability to talk and walk on 2 legs, but he's so scared because he's not used to being in the medieval world. I'm going to have to come up with an origin story. I've been thinking about it for a while, where, you know, Egil finds him in a wood and, you know, looks after him and you know, teaches him the ways of the Viking, of the Norse. And then, you know, Egil kind of becomes his dad. And even though I invented Dave, because I think, well, I was thinking about, I made one story up, and I was thinking about different characters, and then I suggested, well, why don't we have a Viking cat? And I think Egil came up with the concept of calling him Dave because it was funny. And then me and Egil sat down and just talked about it over a few seconds, which is where Dave came from. So Iric says, good dag, brother, or good dag. So good dag, or good morgen. Oh, yes. Hope you're having a good day so far. I'm just doing an early morning live stream. I did a live stream last night, Iric, but I accidentally deleted it this morning when I saw a video which was like all grey, and I thought, well, what's that doing? And I thought it was a video I uploaded and deleted because it didn't work out right. It was the video I put out at 9 o'clock this morning. So I'm a bit gutted over that, because I need the watch time to get to 4,000 hours. But I don't know, have I got any tea left? Yes, I have. Wicked. Yeah, so 99. What's that? That's 26 years I've been dressing as a Viking. And it's been 29 years. It'll be 30 years next year. So how close are you to 4,000 hours? Well, I think I'm on 2,200 at the moment. We was on 2,000, but in the last month we've added 200 hours. So one of the reasons why I'm going to try to start doing and putting out more long format is just to try to get those hours so that we can apply to be monetized again, because it does help to get income from what you're doing. Because, you know, any income I make from the channel is going to go back into the channel. Trust me, because, you know, at some point I'm going to go away and, you know, because in my own personal life, my life will be changing in the next few months or 6 months when, you know, because my dad passed away. I've got an inheritance coming my way. So that's going to change my life. And I'm going to have more money to invest in the channel and buy more kit. You like, I want to get a Sutton Hoo helmet. I want to, you know, specialise in, you know, some early Saxon kit. But you will see on this video, I have linked the new merchandise, but I didn't mess up on the site I've gone for, which is called Fourth Wall. When you had to go through your banking details, I accidentally selected America and I can't change it to the UK. So I've had to send an email so they can change it from their end, which is pretty frustrating. And that's one of the reasons why I'm also trying to put out more long format content and have more of a balance, because it does help to get those 4,000 hours. And let's face it, you know, a lot of the equipment we use and the helmets, I mean, something like this, you know, that's £2,000-3,000 for a helmet this quality. And fair enough, and you know, some of these cheaper helmets, you know, I think this was £35 or £45. But of course, if I got that extra money coming in, I better say to myself, yeah, you know, if I see something, or I can go to some of the re-enactment markets and buy more kit, so I got more weapons I can talk about on camera. Because, you know, I don't have a bow, for instance. I've never owned a Norse Viking medieval bow, and I really love to have one. But of course, you know, you're trying to buy a bow, then it's, you know, £300 to £400 easily for a second-hand one. Well, probably this, probably the most expensive thing I've got. I'll pay £1,200 for it, but I know people have tried to buy it off me, and I've been offered 3,000 quid for this because of who made it. It's not because of the helmet, it's because of who made the helmet, Ivor Lawton. So that's probably the most expensive kit I've got, and I never want to sell it because it's so nice. And I really would like to have some really good quality Vendel helmets and have a Vendel impression, a bit like the Wolf Edness group. and go for that sort of an impression, so that we can look different on camera and have different impressions rather than just being a simple plain Norse warrior. But of course, if you're trying to get into an impression, if you're doing 5th or 6th century, or you're doing, I like to do a Romano-British impression. I mean, I got a sword for it now, and I got a sea axe, but I need to have different clothing for it. So it all takes time and it all takes money. It's not a cheap hobby to get into, especially if you're looking at, some of the top end, items. If you want something like silver or, plate. I mean, you go for like these here, I mean, there's probably £1,000 worth of silver in those two. And, this one is probably, a £500 necklace when you think about the weight and the time it costs to make it. So the better the quality of the stuff you want, the more it's going to cost you, I mean, I don't have a set of riveted chainmail or a hallmark. I've seen one very recently on a Facebook group, which I keep meaning to actually share with Eric. But he's got the leggings, and he's got the coif, long sleeve chainmail shirt. But that's £500. What's that going to be? $600-700? And I'd love to just go and buy it now, but I don't really have the spare money. So it all costs money. I don't really have a Anglo-Saxon shield, for instance. One of the dome ones. All my shields are flat and straight. So then I like to have some Roman kit, and maybe think about getting some Celtic kit. And then I quite fancy going a little bit later in history and getting myself a nice, decent, set of armor like the knights wear, and have a bit of a later impression, because the more I have, then the more I can talk about on camera, and then we can slowly develop the channel and then talk about different eras of history, and even go a little bit further. I mean, I could do the American Civil War, because I got enough kit for that. I got everything I need for that, really, practically. So I could introduce that to the channel, but it's just one of those eras of warfare which I've been a little bit reluctant to talk about too much, because of, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've had all these Confederate statues being taken down, and all that history has been knocked down, and I just think it's disgraceful, really. I mean, not from the from the point of view that you're knocking down history. It's irrelevant what the Confederates believe in. But they believed in something, didn't they? And they believed in a cause, or they wouldn't have fought for the cause and started the Confederacy. And most Confederate soldiers and men had nothing to do with slavery. And of course, that whole word and the whole subject is, one of the reasons why I've not really gone too much into the American Civil War. And then, there's also the issue of, the confidence issue, because, I don't like to talk about things on camera and get things wrong. And I have done, because I'm not perfect. I don't know everything about the medieval age. And I certainly don't know everything about, the American Civil War. But I have, reenacted and been to so many battles, and I certainly got the knowledge to start talking about it and dressing as a Union soldier. And then I have the other problem, which is, do I want to portray a standard Union soldier, or do I want to actually portray the regiment I portray and I love? Because if you get a sword, you chop me in half, you'll find that like a stick of rock, which is a bit of candy with normally got the name of the place it comes from, like Blackpool. You're going to see Norse, and you're going to see the letters for 140H, 14th, because I've hung about with that regiment so much over the years, and I got so much love for the 14th Brooklyn. It was a massive part of my life. So I don't want to dress in that kit and disrespect the men. 719 of them died or got wounded in battle. I don't want to disrespect them. So, but at the same time, I'm like that, really. So I could think about introducing American Civil War content to the channel, which would also radically change the channel to a certain degree. But I do have, a lot of passion for it, and I do own a lot of American Civil War kit, because I used to run my own regiment 10 years ago. I reformed the 14th Company H with a guy called Frenchy, who as soon as the committee and the hierarchy of the society wanted me to become the sergeant and the officer, he buggered off and stabbed us in the back, basically, which is not surprising because that's what he does. But I hope the guy's all right. But so I could introduce that to the channel as another way of introducing that sort of content to the channel. But but then again, I thought, well, perhaps start a new channel for that. But then again, I think to myself, well, we come on this journey. It's about history. Why not introduce new eras of history? So, it's like I think, well, perhaps we could, invest, £1,000 and buy some World War II kit, and we could talk about World War II. I certainly read enough books and got enough knowledge to talk about World War II and some of the everyday aspects about World War II. Whether that'll be probably an American kit or whether it will be as a British Tommy. Those were the two I'd go for. But yeah, so there's a lot we could do on the channel, but it's also about opening the channel up and talking about some of the bigger things, like some of the videos I made recently about covering some of the aspects about mental health. Because the reason why I'm doing that is because my audience is 91% men, and a lot of men these days, especially younger men, young adult men, really are struggling in life. I've not long finished working as a support worker. I did 6 months supporting young adults with serious problems, which I don't want to get into too much. But it was very eye-opening because it kind of made me realise and see that we've got a lot of young men in the world who have no idea and no clue, and who are very sadly just been, and this is also young women as well, that have just been made into a product. To the system, they're just a product. They can put them in a house, and a business will look after them and make money from them and do very little when it comes to making them independent. So another notification on Facebook. Yeah, I am on Facebook. If you ever want to add me on Facebook, if you just type in Andy Bragi Magnusson Wright, that's WRIGHT, you should see somewhere in the community post, you'll see that link. You're more than welcome to talk to me on Facebook. And again, another reason why I'm covering mental health subjects, and I do have quite a few to talk about. This is my rough book up. When I get an idea or a comment I like, I write it down. Then I can make videos from it. So I do have a few ideas here I'm going to cover when it comes to mental health. But I'm also trying to relate it to the medieval age as well, because it's great if you're talking about the medieval world, or you're talking about solitude or being different. But I think if we can also relate it to the medieval age, so that's what I tried to do in the last video about solitude. Because solitude is an old thing, it also incorporates the current thing we do on the channel with the new thing. But it's also about being responsible to the fact that if you're, a content creator, you need to have that responsibility to talk about the bigger subjects, but without going too political, really, because that's one area I don't want. Well, I love to go into more political things and talk about what's going on in the world. But I kind of don't want to take the channel in that direction if I can help it. And I think Take Here is probably right on that aspect. Even though, at the very beginning of the year, when I didn't have a lot of spare time on my hands, I did make quite a few funny Keir Starmer videos. I think 99% of them are being unlisted from the channel. But literally in 1 month, we had over 300,000 views. And in 1 month, we gained over 1,200 subscribers from those videos. But at the same time, I kept on having just 1 or 2 comments from some of the old subscribers saying, I don't like what you're doing to the channel, Bragi. I'm leaving the channel. So I stopped making them. But it was driving a lot of traffic to the channel. And it was, helping the channel to grow. And the thing is, it was about the fact that I'm not happy with the way things are going with the UK government, because I don't like Keir Starmer too much. I mean, fair enough. I'm sure if you take him out for a beer, I'm sure he's probably a nice, decent guy in the bottom of his heart. But for my, I never voted for Labour. I'm not voted for Labour since, I became old enough to vote, because I can remember Tony Blair getting in and all the lies he told, and then he took us to war illegally. So, and Labour haven't really been the Labour Party for a long time. But again, that's the same with the Conservatives, because the Conservatives are more like are not like the Conservatives anymore. And I was one of the people that voted for Boris Johnson. I voted for him because I thought, well, he was refreshing to a change, even though he was a bit of a baffling and wandering idiot at times, and certainly a bit of a liar. But at least it was entertaining. And then the bloody Conservatives got rid of him. So there's no wonder really that people like Nigel Farage is doing so well, and Reform are doing so well in the polls. And you do feel like we need a change in the UK. Whether that's the right change, I don't know. Because on the one hand, I think, well, Nigel Farage, he's quite a bit of a character. He's brought about Brexit, even though we've not probably had Brexit, and it's still going on after 10 years. We should have got Brexit, got it sorted with, made the deals with Europe, made the deals with the rest of the world, and just being our sovereign identity as the UK, and not to be stuck with the bureaucratic system of the EU, but still allow free movement in the sense of, so our people, when they want to go on holiday to Europe, are not going to have any hindrance. If you buy something from Europe, you're not going to be stuck with a massive import tax. But of course, none of that's happened because of the fact that politicians are so bloody useless. They can't organise a piss up in a brewery, as my dad would say. So on the one hand, I think, well, Nigel Farage is quite refreshing. But on the other hand, I think to myself, well, is he just, the new Conservatives in disguise? Is he a part of the political system? Is Nigel Farage a part of the political elite? And we just don't fundamentally realise that. But it's a whole another entire subject. And I got a lot of passion for the world we live in and what we're going through in the world. But I just try not to bring it to the channel too much, because I just don't want to go down that route. Have I got any tea left in my teapot? No, I don't. Oh, what a shame. How terrible that is. Yeah, so do you have any more comments or any more questions? So let's talk about, if you're becoming a Norse reenactor, or maybe you want to dress, be a LARP Norse reenactor and do it more fantasy, what's the basic sort of kit you're going to need to buy, and what other type of expenses and costs you're going to look for? Well, naturally, you're going to need a under tunic and you're going to need a over tunic. So those are your first two bits of kit. You're going to need some Viking trousers or breeches, and then preferably some nice turn shoes. So yeah, I mean, I forgot any of my Viking shoes around here. So yeah, so you're going to be spending £200-300 on those 3 items or 4 items. A pair of trousers is going to cost you, £50 to £100. If you buy the wooling yourself and you make them, then you're most probably going to get a pair of trousers for £30-40. And then you're going to be looking at, your turn shoes are going to cost you £50 easily. You can go to the extreme and get a really quality handmade pair. I mean, they're all handmade, but depending on the quality of who's making it, you can spend £500, and I have done. Then you're going to want a helmet. Say that's going to cost you £50 to £100 for a new helmet. You're going to want a spear. So again, that's going to be £50 to £100. A sea axe, £50 to £100 again. Because when you go and join up a reenactment group, you'll always have the ability to buy second-hand kit, and some of that can be quite cheap. You may get a sea axe or an axe for 20 quid if you're lucky. But so a lot of this kit is very expensive, and of course you've got to start somewhere. But the higher you go up as a Norse warrior or a Saxon, the more money you're going to have to start spending on your kit. And of course, if you want to be ultra elite and have jewelry with gold plated or silver jewelry, that's going to cost you a lot of money as well. So it all costs a lot of money. Oh, look at that! I went out of tea. I got a tea service. Look, that's what I use for my tea. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. So I'm going to end the live stream now so I can go to the toilet because I need a wee. And I've got to go make another cup of tea. and think about a few videos for the day. And this time, I'm going to try not to delete the video like I did this bloody morning. I can't believe it. I'm still gutted about it. But whenever I make a mistake, and my little tip: if you make a mistake in life, imagine you let's just say this is a hammer, right? And or let's say you're drilling a hole in a wall or a bit of wood, and you make a mistake. What's the first thing you do? Now, let's say this is a hammer, and I've just whacked my finger with the hammer. You're going to start swearing, aren't you? You're going to go, oh, bloody hell, oh, Jesus Christ, oh, God, that bloody hurts. That's what you should not do. What you should do is you pause, you think about what you've done, and especially if you just whack yourself, what I do, now, because I got a blacksmith workshop, and because I got a lot of tools and I work a lot of tools, I've smacked my hand so many times with a hammer. So if I'm working a hammer and I hit my hand with it, I don't start screaming and swearing to myself. I'll get the hammer and I'll just concentrate and I'll do this. So imagine this is I don't have a hammer on me. I don't have a random hammer in my bedroom. So imagine this is the hammer. And what I do, I just take the hammer and I just do this 20 times and focus, right? And amazingly, that kind of stops the pain. But basically, when you make a mistake, and we've all done it. You're doing something. You're drilling a hole in a wall, or you're cooking some food and you put too much salt in it, and you go to yourself, "Oh, you stupid idiot!" That's one thing you should never do. What I do, and I do it all the time, I say, next time I will do things better and I will learn. Because by saying that, I'm creating that positive psychological reinforcement for my brain to learn the lesson. And on that little bit of a tip about making mistakes and how to deal with them, I hope you've enjoyed this 90 minutes live stream. And if I'm not tired this evening, I will come back online because I've got to go and think about what videos I've got. And I made a few videos yesterday, so I'm going to edit them for the shorts program, for our shorts videos, and think about a long format video. And then I'm going to film a couple of videos around the mental health subjects I've got to do today. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of hours. So I will see you guys later on. Thank you, Larry, for hanging about and asking questions. That really did help. Don't know why I've just done that hid chat. I don't want to hide chat. I've still got to get used to live streaming. There we go. So, but yeah, and hello to Iric. Thank you for turning up and saying hello, brother. So always good to see you. And I talk to Iric most days. He's been one of my wonderful friends in life. And I love the guy to bits. I love you, brother, because you've been such a great help and support to me. And I don't have a lot of friends in my life. I mean, YouTube and you guys and girls, let's not forget the ladies, are my family and friends. And I love you guys to bits. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart because, you kept me going and this channel keeps me going. And, it's a wonderful gift to have. And, it's been an amazing journey. And it's your journey as well as my journey. And we're going to continue this journey. And, once we get to 10,000 subs, we're going to go for the, 100,000 subs. And I think eventually we could get to 1 million subscribers on this channel. But it takes time. So, yes, love you to bits. You've all been wonderful. Don't forget, you're all amazing, brilliant people. And we do live in an amazing world. And we can make it great and amazing even more so by having that power of positivity and above all, being kind to one another and practicing goodness. And just, just get rid of the negative people in your life and just have positive people around you. And you'll feel so much better in life getting rid of those negative, horrible people, because there are lots of horrible, negative, nasty people out there, and feel sorry for them. And let's hope people like that change and become better. Because, I believe everybody's got the ability to become nice and be decent and to practice goodness and kindness. Because if we all did that, if we all became nice, decent people, well, perhaps we wouldn't have wars anymore. Perhaps we could think about getting rid of disease and getting rid of loneliness and making the world a better place. So, yeah, that's why we're here on the channel. So I hope you've enjoyed this long live stream. And if I'm not tired tonight, I'm going to come back and do another one. Maybe dressed as a Viking and Norse warrior for you. So goodbye. Bye. I've got to figure out how to end it now. Which is always a little bit, I definitely done it before when I tried to end the live stream. I'm still carried on for 5 minutes when my camera's in my pocket. So, yes.